we got a wide range of the landscape, but probably the case everybody's talking about, we'll focus on the more legal consequential aspects of, which is the Johnny Depp case.
Yeah, well, let's do it. The big discussion of the week is the jury being the jury anonymity being safeguarded, being ordered and preserved. And I know that within the LawTube, DMs, there's discussion about it. So they're not disclosing the identity of the jurors. It's for a year in this case, Robert?
Yeah. And it's deeply, until the mid-1970s, no jury in America was anonymous. No jury. Not a civil case, not a criminal case, ever. So for 200 years, we maintained the public identification of jurors, which continues a jury tradition that goes back centuries, many centuries, back before the Magna Carta, part of what the Magna Carta was protecting. So you're talking about over 1,000 years of American or Anglo-Saxon legal tradition, which said that juries are supposed to be public. You're supposed to know who the jurors are. Why? Because these are decision makers. Imagine if we said, hey, next year the Senate's all going to be anonymous. So you're going to have a senator, you're just not going to know who they are. A congressman, not know who they are. President, not know who they are. A judge, not know who they are. We don't do secret trials in America, and yet that's what these anonymous juries are doing.
It's an amazing thing, actually, because in Quebec, we're having currently a totally secret trial. We don't know who the defendant is. We don't know anything that's going on. Total publication ban. I mean, it's what they do. I should back that up. I'd like to say it's what they do in North Korea, but even in North Korea, Otto Warmbier's trial was still. I mean, we saw it. It was a kangaroo court 1-hour trial, sentenced him for 13 years. Even there, though, I think we knew what was going on. But here's the question: people are going to say, because there are two very important things to keep in the balance here. One is transparency of the process. If in Roger Stone we had known who the jury members were, the public would have found out that they were tainted, possibly. Same thing with Chauvin. Activist jury members on the jury. The flip side is you want to vet them, but also you don't want them to be subject to harassment to change their decision. Also, a la Chauvin. So those are two very important things. How do you balance them? I mean, I understand it's supposed.
Well, we've always taken the choice of public trials. So the idea that, well, maybe they'll come to a fairer verdict if they're secret, strikes me as deeply disturbing, because we should never trust secret justice, period. So if secrecy, I don't believe secrecy ever improves the possibility of impartiality, ever. I doubt and distrust the premise. I agree with Julian Assange about that. Secrets is where, like the movie No More Secrets, Sneakers, that's what the acronym turns out to be. But that sort of determination is something that is abhorrent to our constitutional traditions. And there's two issues in the federal context. Depp's at a state level, but in the federal context, it's the right of the freedom of the press, which is enforceable against the states. The First Amendment right of freedom of the press to investigate and inquire. Then, in my view, it's part of the Sixth Amendment right and the Seventh Amendment right, depending on the kind of case it is, to a trial by jury. That meant public jury, publicly known jury. Again, that's the long history for more than going on many centuries, undisturbed until the mid-1970s, when the administrative and professional class wanted to allow secret justice to start to happen. Sometimes secret even from the parties. I mean, that I find totally horrendous. But it's equally horrendous to me for it to happen in the context of any trial in America. And then you have the state constitutional rights that apply, right to public access. And there's a federal common law right of federal access. I consider it constitutional because I think it's under the 9th Amendment to the United States Constitution, rights reserved to the people. So in my view, you have a right of public access to trials that can only be overcome in exceptional, extraordinary cases. You need a compelling government interest, and you need the most narrowly tailored means to achieve and attain that compelling public interest. And in my view, secrecy will never fit that, ever. So I opposed it in the Roger Stone case. I opposed it in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I oppose it now. There should be no secret jurors. If someone says, hey, I can't be a secret juror, I can't be a public juror, then they are not constitutionally qualified to be impartial and should be removed from the jury pool.
And that's to prevent juror intimidation, sequestration.
is an alternative. Exactly. All these jurors could be put in private places, places that no one knows where they are. And I mean, not only that, juror intimidation is already illegal. So I always find fascinating. It's like the gun control debate. We're going to create a new law to make sure someone doesn't violate existing law. How does that work?
And my take on the intimidation argument is the people doing the intimidation, the threats, they're going to find out regardless. I mean, they are probably on the side where they're going to get fed that info, and then all they're going to be able to do is intimidate in private, where the public won't even know about the jury intimidation. It's like you're not going to protect them from the bad actors who are going to find out who they are and go and harass and threaten. And so you might as well just have it done publicly so that we can know if the public thinks the jury has been tainted.
The problem with secret justice is you'll have biased people on that jury that would have been outed or could have been outed if they were publicly known. That to me is a much greater risk than the risk is that someone will break a law anyway by trying to contact and communicate with a juror that somehow they only found out about because the jurors' names were public. You know, now that transitions into a question about what is the effect of cameras in the courtroom. I'm a fan, of course, of cameras in the courtroom because I believe, again, in the same public right for the public to participate effectively as observers, meaningful observers in a trial. Like elections, I think that means meaningful observation, not, trying to peek through a blind and look through some binoculars to figure out what somebody's doing, like it happened in Pennsylvania in 2020. The same is true here. And so I favor cameras. I think cameras should be in the federal courtroom as every courtroom. I think that should be part of the judicial process, that courts be required to video record everything that goes on in courts so that it's available to litigants, but it's also available to public observance with very limited circumstances. There are times where proceedings should be sealed, and that's a secret proceeding, but only in very limited circumstances should that be allowed. Not for ordinary trials. But the question becomes, what happens when the observed and the observer are interacting in ways potentially with the jury, potentially for public consumption? The concerns that were raised this week was whether or not certain people were knowing that the theory was, I'm not making any accusations. Personally, I know DUI lawyers are some of the most ethical lawyers in the world. When I think of marketing lawyers, ethics, I think of Better Call Saul as a prime example of good ethics. DUI lawyers put those guys to shame. Not saying anything bad about DUI lawyers, just a little caveat there. But hypothetically, if somebody was in the courtroom, knew they're being taped and by the cameras as part of the gallery, as part of the observer, usually the gallery isn't always recorded like this, but if that's going to happen, how does that impact the trial? If the trial is really for public consumption, like this trial kind of is, it's kind of not for the jury in the jury box. It's for the jury in the world. How does public participation in the observer role when you have cameras in the courtroom taping the gallery's reaction? How does that interface or interact? You're going to have a lot of judges second guess where cameras are put in the courtroom based on what's happened in this trial. I think they'd be wrong to do so, but I don't disfavor them. I think everything should be recorded because maybe somebody in the gallery did have an impact on the jury, and I want that on videotape, not hidden. But a lot of courts' reactions to this trial is going to be no more video access to the gallery.
And by the way, I pulled up one comment. I'm not getting into any of the LawTube drama. Yeah. But everybody, and there's no but. The story, for those who don't know, DUI guy got called out by someone on Twitter for being accused of being a Depp fan for reacting to the TMZ guy's quip to Elaine. Yep. And I'm going to just outright defend DUI guy. Everyone in that courtroom reacted the same way. To single out anybody and impute bad intentions is dishonest because you have no reason to believe that.
I think what got him also into trouble was looking at laptops of lawyers. Somehow he accidentally looked at Heard's lawyer's laptop while it was public. That's patently unprofessional, highly unethical, very illicit.
Did he?
DUI guy did and talked about it. So he got himself on attention. He kept accidentally getting in the middle of controversy. Like I said, I've had a lot of experience with DUI lawyers. There's not a single one I would ever trust. That doesn't mean I wouldn't hire them. Some of them are Better Call Saul skilled, but they make Better Call Saul look like a beacon of ethics. Just
so I did not know about the peeking on the laptops and reporting on it.
Yeah. And apparently there's a sequence of issues. Apparently court staff had expressed concern about a wide range of conduct about disclosure. So he got, I think he was on Heard's radar, Heard's PR team's radar for illicit reasons, because as you note, he had a reaction that a lot of people did when the lawyer asked a dumb question and got smacked back with the answer of the TMZ witness. But he was also in controversy for a bunch of other things he kept doing. Now, I don't care about the dispute as a general rule, except to the degree courts are paying attention, and courts might start limiting camera access because they will not like. Some courts will look at what DUI guy did and think he did it deliberately, or think other people will want to do it deliberately, even if he didn't. So that people will be mugging for the cameras in the, like already the excuse in federal courts is the lawyers and the witnesses will mug for the cameras if they know they're cameras. Well, now what happens if the courts say, golly gee, the gallery will be mugging for the cameras? That it's going to be used as a new excuse to limit the amount of video cameras in the courtroom, illicitly in my view, but it's coming.
And I'll just say one thing. But my argument would be, however, the gallery responds that way, and if it affects the jury, the presence of cameras or not changes nothing, because they would have done it regardless.
In fact, it just gives you better evidence that it could have occurred.
Yeah.
I mean, Heard's team would have had no knowledge he did that, but for the camera capturing it. So and that others did it. And so if they want to make an argument, they can make an argument. Apparently they did. And they also complained about people saying things, people being verbal. How much that happened or didn't happen. I didn't see any verbal actions by the gallery. But by the way, that happens in all high-profile trials. Galleries react all the time. Juries know, I mean, judges know that. They try to limit it. They try to restrict it. But particularly laughter. Laughter either hits or it happens or just naturally. Everybody either laughs or they don't. And so I'm not critical of DUI guys for his public reaction to it. I do think that the getting into controversy after controversy is a bit of a Again, I come in with a pre-existing bias because my DUI lawyers make accident lawyers advertising look respectable. Just being blunt.
Well, now, and in fairness to me, I didn't know about the second thing. And Robert, it's an interesting thing. In my practice, once upon a time, I saw something on my opposing counsel computer, on my opposing counsel's computer. And I saw it. I was like, I saw something, and I had to go ask my dad. I was like, can I use this? Because, but for the fact that I saw, it's like, in poker, I saw his cards. And I was like, can I use that? And he says, you have to get that information lawfully. You can't spy.
Even if it's inadvertent attorney-client privilege information. It's just, when I found that out it was members of our board who brought it to my attention. I was like, okay, now I see where the controversy is. And it's a little bit different and Eric Hunley did a live stream Saturday, breaking down some alternative interpretations of the LawTube controversy. I recommend people to it at unstructured.locals.com. And I think he was definitely onto something as to maybe kind of like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case itself, who exactly the culprit is and who exactly the victim is might not have been as clear as it originally appeared.
And we'll move on to it from now because people don't like it. I understand, by the way.
Yes. I mean, the courts and camera, unfortunately, this case and social media coverage and commentary on jurors in live time, it's going to scare a lot of judges. I disagree with that, but that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, we're going to see not only more anonymous juries, we're probably going to see more restrictions on who can be in the gallery. You'll probably see more examples of the Ghislaine Maxwell example. Hopefully, at least they still broadcast the substance of the trial, but they may not allow people in the gallery at all so that people can't, which I disagree with. They're going to try to gut public participation rights, and they're going to use these controversies as their pretext to do it. And yes, indeed, everybody, this is a Duran American flag mug. And
I thought you were using the InfoWars mug tonight. I didn't notice it.
Oh, I got an InfoWars one too. And of course, you can get merch now from the Viva shop.
It's been up for 1 week, and it looks like people like it. It's centralized, more than just shirts, and in as much as possible.
Viva Barnes University trucker hats, which is very
what about this, Barnes?
Hold on. There you go. Got a range of got the Viva Fro. And then some more. Sure, people asked about some of the popular phrases. There'll be merchandise coming on that as well soon enough.
Left, right, and center. I'm just we're not letting it out in a what's the word, in a rush. It's going to go out in a trickled, controlled release. We don't want to get it all out at the same time. Super sticker Lizanne. Before I forget, Lizavon Zamet, thank you very much. Robert, one question, last one on Johnny Depp. Someone said that they didn't want to put the jury in sequestration because it would have cost too much. That didn't make any sense to me given the trial. Is it the fact that it's 6 weeks and you can't sequester a jury for 6 weeks?
I mean, the government's got that budget for that. I mean, they could easily. The real reason they don't like to sequester is jurors hate it. Because jurors don't like to go to some cheap hotel room and can't talk to their family and be back with everybody. Judges pretend it's money is the reason they won't do it. It's because jurors hate it. Jurors don't want to be sequestered for a second. And now the question is, in the modern age of phones and laptops, how practical is sequestration? I can't say the word badge right now. How successful is doing that to the jury? When in the old days you could prevent them, you could know what was on their TV in the hotel, could limit what was available to be watched. For example, you could limit newspaper access. Now you could limit talk radio access in the cars. Now with the internet age, can you really limit anything? Probably not. So I don't know how much sequestering them really matters. I'm not as big a fan of that. I mean, my view is there's already criminal laws on the books that deter somebody from trying to intimidate or obstruct or contaminate a jury trial. If that's not going to deter them, do you think juror anonymity is going to deter them? I don't think so. Now, if people want our breakdown of the closing arguments, we did that on Friday. So we did a breakdown of parts of both closing arguments.
Yeah, I noticed some flack in the comment section because we spent too much time on Rottenborn and not enough time on
Camille Vat. Well, some people wanted us to talk about what was really bad in Elaine's. I'm not going to do a detailed review of someone who just did a terrible close that was up at sidebar 8 times. That's not really productive. Do someone who did a decent, but maybe not a decent close, but where there was room for improvement. Put it that way. And both Rottenborn and Camille Vasquez prevented those. So if you want to see our argument, our interpretation of that, quality of argument, probability of jury outcomes, I believe Depp will win and he'll receive funds, despite the fact that the jury is a liberal, democratic, male, youthful jury pool that would not normally be his best demographic jury pool. And as someone in the super chat mentioned, the majority of the jurors, or 7 of them, they have to decide unanimously. A majority were wearing masks. Even at this stage, this is Fairfax County, very liberal, democratic county.
Is it possible that they were wearing the masks to cover their face for anonymity or not to be identified and not for COVID?
I mean, their names are already not identified. I mean, they can't be photographed by anybody inside the courtroom. They can be photographed when they leave. So that's possible. But my guess is no, because, 4 of them were masked, 3 of them were not. My guess is they're masked because they're mask wearers. I mean, this is Fairfax County, folks. This is basically DC extended, which transitions into our other case. We'll see if Johnny Depp can get justice out of a DC-oriented jury pool, because just as we will see if the Sussman trial results in what should be easy, clear convictions, yet it's been sitting with the jury and did not result on that on Friday after it went to the jury this past week.
So there has not been a verdict in Sussman. The verdict that we were talking about was in Jan 6th. Sussman. Well, let's just go. Hold on a second. There we go. So it seems to be more volume on this side. Now, by the way, it's gotten so long, it's grown up, and now it's started to fall to the side. So I'm like a palm tree. Sussman, Robert.
That's true. It is like a palm tree. Someone should put a Viva head with a palm tree on top of your head.
It's coming. Johnny Depp over, people. Let's move on to the important stuff. Sussman.